How can you have 56% of Americans in support of fully ending the drug war and 0 senators in support of it?
Hi, I'm Tracy Oppenheimer for Reason TV. I'm here with Doug Fine, investigative journalist and author of Too High to Fail, Cannabis in the New Green Economic Revolution. Doug, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Tracy.
Could you give us some numbers, some facts and figures about the size and scope of the industry and where the money's going right now?
Anytime there's a prohibition economy, crime and organized crime tends to be the profit makers. So we have these super rich cartels. Most estimates put 70% of cartel profits coming from cannabis. What I did was I followed the one place at the time in the U.S. where the local government had said, this is what our economy is here. This is Mendocino County, California. Within that one county, in the year that the federal government allowed it to really fully operate, 2011, the program overall generated $600,000 worth of revenue for the county, saved 7 deputy jobs, and mapped that on to an entire U.S., and it would be billions and billions for the legitimate economy while crippling the cartels.
Talk about more how Mendocino has special conditions for this industry and why you think it should serve as a model for the rest of the country.
I picked Mendocino because politically and culturally it was ready. The sheriff had this revelation, and he's not, in his own words, he doesn't like to be thought of as the Cheech and Chong sheriff. It's not like he's out there just saying, do whatever you want. He is a law and order guy, and he woke up one day after legalizing medical cannabis in California in 1996 and said, guess what, they're still in America, and everything is fine, and I think maybe people who need to fight the drug war need to retire. And I need to generate this revenue because we have budget cuts here. The government there, the Board of Supervisors said, let's do this. Let's stop the nonsense. Let's stop pretending the elephant in the economy isn't there and just stop it. And it worked. But nobody told the feds.
I think you said it's 80% of the economy up there.
Oh yeah, easily.
And I think that culture probably isn't reflected in as much of the rest of the country. Do you think that the rest of the country can still take notes from it?
Middle America seems really ready to end the drug war. We're getting 80 to 90% of Americans polling in support of medical cannabis, and over 50, now up pushing 56% and increasing and accelerating, supporting just flat out regulating cannabis like alcohol, ending the drug war in that, at least in that regard. It's not a Northern California issue. It's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's America sees that this longest, most expensive war is hurting us. It's hurting our economy especially.
Aside from medical marijuana, a lot of opponents to flat-out legalization say it's different from alcohol prohibition because it's not a cultural or social staple like alcohol was. What do you think about that?
I really fundamentally disagree with that. First of all, on the economic side, it's an even bigger player. And it's a bigger crop already. Even though everything is underground, it's a bigger crop than corn and wheat combined. It's America's #1 cash crop. As far as those cultural tags, I don't know, maybe that would have been true in the 1950s, but that cliche, along with the this is your brain on drugs nonsense, is passé and wrong. And then again, back to the economic side, prior to alcohol prohibition in the late 1800s, at times alcohol, before the income tax, alcohol taxes provided up to 70% of federal revenue, for better or for worse. So this can't be dismissed as sort of a niche crop and issue that wouldn't have a big economic impact. It actually has a chance to be a major, major, major player in our economy.
You're stressing cannabis as the word, so can you sort of say what that encompasses instead of just saying marijuana?
The reason I choose the term cannabis is that it encompasses all the uses, and the industrial ones may one day dwarf the psychoactive ones. If we start using it for fermentation for our energy needs, it can produce great biofuels. As I said, already cannabis is in the bumpers of Dodge Vipers. So it's got great industrial uses, and I couldn't believe that when I read it. I had to call the company and ask them, and it's true. So that's why I use cannabis, is that the plant has a broad spectrum of uses, all beneficial as far as I'm concerned.
And I know in Mendocino you said that the farmers there are more than willing to succumb to taxation and regulation, but it seems like their black market, or the black market, provides a more profitable option.
There are a lot of second or third generation farmers that I spoke to in the Emerald Triangle, as they call it up there, who are actually happy with the status quo. There's an organization called the Emerald Growers Association in Mendocino and Humboldt and Trinity counties where they're setting their own rules for certification, what we would call organic standards, fair trade standards, because they believe that's a marketing tool, and that one day they'll be on the shelves at Whole Foods, and then there may be some people that want Coors or Budweiser. They want, they may want something that's a little bit different, but there'll be a shakedown after Prohibition ends and when drug war ends, but that's what capitalism is, and the market will prevail.
And once the market does prevail, what does this utopian marijuana or cannabis-enriched society look like for you?
So I wouldn't say that it's a utopia, but understanding that predictions are always risky. If we go by history and look at what happened with alcohol prohibition when it ended, I think in the end, especially if we allow craft cannabis, top-shelf craft cannabis the way we now allow microbrews. We have this multi-billion-dollar microbrew revolution that occurred when the brewing rules changed in the 1970s. We will see significant reductions in our use of foreign oil, and we will see actual use rates of various substances go down because the people can be more honest. So I think that we'll see the declines of cartel profits. I spoke to a USDA biologist who was involved in alternative fuels. That's her specialty. And she was about to give a talk on all these cool biofuels that are better than corn and soy in terms of per acre productivity. And she was talking about this plant called Jatropha, and there's grapeseed oil. And I said, what about cannabis/hemp? And she said, oh, best one of all, but we can't even do it. We can't even talk about it because it's a federal crime.
The LA City Council voted to ban dispensaries here. The feds are obviously very anti any sort of cannabis. So what are the other barriers that we have to overcome to get there?
Gary Johnson is a former governor of my state of New Mexico. He calls the banning of cannabis and the drug war the greatest disconnect between America and her politicians. How can you have 56% of Americans in support of fully ending the drug war and 0 senators in support of it? There's some screwy thing that has to do, I think, with bureaucratic inertia. When you've got billions going, a lot of people's jobs depend on it, and we've got to shift those billions into a different place and get the Senate on board. So I think that tipping point is going to be when Americans get on the horn with their politicians and say, this is actually a real issue. You need to end the drug war now.
Great. Well, thank you, Doug.
My pleasure.
For Reason TV, I'm Tracy Oppenheimer.